The Pleistocene was an unforgiving era. Early hominins spent their days tracking massive, dangerous prey across freezing landscapes, and a single mistake usually meant a violent end. Survival consumed every waking hour. In the rest of the animal kingdom, death is a purely biological event. When a creature drops, its body becomes organic waste, left behind to the elements and the scavengers. But deep in the archaeological record, a strange anomaly appears. Early humans stopped leaving their dead where they fell. They started carrying them into caves, digging pits, and intentionally arranging the corpses. Why would a species constantly on the edge of starvation spend precious calories burying a corpse? How did early humans begin to conceive of a soul or a life after this one? This shift toward intentional burial required a new kind of mental architecture. To treat a corpse as a person requires the ability to hold an abstract concept in your mind that contradicts the physical reality right in front of you. The earliest clear evidence of this mental shift is buried in the Levant, inside the Skhul and Qafzeh caves. Roughly 90 to 130,000 years ago, humans began burying their own. Instead of simply dumping bodies in a hole, they deliberately arranged them. Almost universally, these early humans folded the limbs of the deceased tightly against their chests, placing them in a flexed, fetal position. They also began using red ochre. This is a dense iron oxide mineral that early humans initially used as a survival tool. It works incredibly well as a prehistoric sunscreen, an insect repellent, and an adhesive for attaching stone points to wooden spears. At sites like Qafzeh, humans repurposed this functional tool. They started painting their dead with it. Because of its deep red coloring, the ochre became an abstract symbol for blood and vitality. We also see the emergence of specific, individualized care. In one of the Qafzeh graves, an adolescent boy with a severe, healed brain injury was buried with the massive antlers of a fallow deer clasped to his chest. His community had protected him in life, and they honored him in death. By arranging a body into the fetal position and covering it in the symbolic color of lifeblood, these early humans were acting on a new belief. They were preparing a vessel for rebirth in another realm. Fast forward to 30,000 years ago in Upper Paleolithic Russia, and these rituals scale up dramatically at a site called Sungir. Here, archaeologists uncovered a meticulously prepared double grave containing 2 children placed head to head. What makes this grave extraordinary is the sheer volume of material placed inside it. This visualization shows a single mammoth ivory bead. The Sungir children were covered in over 13,000 of these. At roughly an hour per bead, this single grave represents over 10,000 hours of community labor, a massive investment of time dedicated entirely to the dead. This introduces a concept anthropologists call ascribed status. In a harsh Ice Age environment, social standing is usually earned through hunting or leadership. These children hadn't lived long enough to earn that kind of respect. The fact that an entire community spent 10,000 hours decorating the bodies of 2 children indicates a rigid social structure. It shows an ingrained belief that a person's status and their place in the hierarchy survived the death of the physical body. While some communities focused on honoring the dead, others took radical steps to fight the dying process itself. This led to the oldest known surgical procedure in history, trepanation. Looking at this skull, you can clearly see deep holes cut directly into the cranial vault. The smooth, healed, rounded edges around the bone indicate that the patients actually survived having a piece of their skull scraped or drilled away. Trepanation likely started as a practical medical intervention. In a world of blunt force weapons and large prey, hunters frequently suffered skull fractures. Primitive surgeons removed the shattered bone fragments to relieve pressure and clean out pooled blood. But medical historian Dr. Plinio Prioresci proposed a deeper cognitive layer, which he called the Undying hypothesis. Prehistoric people would routinely see an injured hunter get knocked unconscious, appearing totally dead, only to wake up from the coma hours later. They observed that head injuries caused this temporary death, and figured the head was the control center for the life force. So when prominent members of the group fell mysteriously ill, surgeons drilled into their skulls to let an evil spirit escape, or to help an activating spirit get back in. The healed bone and precise cuts suggest a structured medical culture. Prehistoric surgeons were actively experimenting with the physical machinery they believed housed the human soul. The intentional burials, the repurposing of red ochre, and the spiritual surgeries all point to the exact same cognitive milestone. Our ancestors were transitioning into Homo Symbolicus, a species driven by symbols. As you can see in this network map, when a population grows beyond a small, tight-knit tribe, personal relationships aren't enough to maintain order. By splitting the world into a physical reality and a shared hidden spiritual reality, humans created a framework of trust that could bind thousands of individuals together. The prehistoric shaman drilling into a skull to save a leader belongs to the exact same lineage of abstract thought that eventually gave us organized religions, complex legal systems, and modern medical science. Our modern ability to organize around abstract ideas relies on the same cognitive capacity for shared symbols. It began when we looked at the finality of death and chose to invent a narrative that went beyond it.